This really could be it right here. Attention, air traffic control. This flock of eagles is heading to New Orleans.
There we go, baby. This flock of birds headed to New Orleans. Got to love that call. Merrill Reese, obviously. But even better news, shout out to everybody in the chat. We, of course, had to jump on live here, Thomas. BG, the dude's back. It's crazy.
How about that? Someone else going to New Orleans now is Brandon Graham. And it's not a massive surprise, Josh, but it still is. It's still a big deal. And now the whole report from the Philadelphia Inquirer kind of has to start our story today, because on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, after Philadelphia had officially punched that ticket to the Super Bowl, there was a report from the Inquirer saying that BG would be activated off of IR and he would practice starting on Monday. And of course, today's Thursday. And so Monday came and went, Tuesday came and went, Wednesday came and went. You started to kind of wonder, okay, when is this thing actually going to happen? Is it going to happen? And of course, about 3 minutes ago, the Philadelphia Eagles officially have brought Brandon Graham, back from IR. He will now practice with the Eagles. And while it doesn't technically guarantee he's going to play, Josh, this all but guarantees Brandon Graham will be in pads, in a jersey, in a helmet, and playing in Super Bowl 59.
Heck yeah. And that's only right. I mean, it's BG, Super Bowl, obviously having the big play. For those that are just joining and curious, we'll go ahead and just flash up the official tweet from the Eagles themselves, if you're wondering. But there you go. Philadelphia Eagles announced officially, like Thomas was saying, a little bit delayed from Monday, but nonetheless, it's out there. Officially opened the practice window for both, by the way, C.J. Uzomah, not lost in the news there, but Brandon Graham as well, and then signed running back Lou Nichols to the practice squad, releasing tight end Nick Muse from the practice squad as well. But again, the biggest news there, officially, BG is back. He not on the active roster yet, so we will hold serve there. I got a few comments of people that had said, like, no, bro, he's come off the IR already. But it's like, not yet. We're almost there. He's working his way. He's doing everything that he can. And I won't lie. I mean, Thomas, we recorded last night on the Wednesday link, and you were more optimistic, and I was more pessimistic in the terms of, like, will BG play in the Super Bowl? Now, still, this does not mean that he will, but this is a really positive sign, because I was kind of thinking we didn't get that news on Monday like we anticipated. So, you're getting there closer to the week of the Super Bowl, and have we seen it? Will we see it? And nonetheless, here it is. BG's back. I'd say big ramification. We've got comments all over the place. I mean, it's positive to begin with. I guess the next step or question, if BG is able to become active and play, is, like, to what extent are we really expecting? Like, where are the expectation levels at for what BG might be able to produce?
Well, it's all about the strength of the tricep now, right? I mean, that is what it comes down to. And obviously, you and I are not doctors, but I've talked to people about this. We've read a bunch of reports about this. It's all about, can the tricep hold up to, pushing against defensive linemen? That's really the main goal here. Can he go against a defensive lineman, shed, and then move over, right? That's going to be the real question. And they would not be activating him to the practice window, Josh, if they didn't already know this, right? The way the practice window works is they give you 21 days to kind of get back on the field and test things out. That doesn't mean that behind the scenes, Brandon Graham has been doing nothing and they have no idea where he's at in terms of his recovery. This means they think that he can give you something. Now, let's be very clear. This is not going to be 100% healthy Brandon Graham. This is not going to be the same BG we saw even the week pre-injury before going into that Rams game where he was one of their best edge rushers. This is pre-Nolan Smith really emerging into the 10.5 sack guy that he's turning into so far this season, including the playoffs. But if you get 10, let's just say 10 good reps from Brandon Graham in pure pass rush situations, Josh, in the third or fourth quarter of a Super Bowl, and he knows this is probably his last game as a Philadelphia Eagle, he can probably be pretty good. And the other big point here, Josh, an upper body injury is so much easier to come back from the NFL. BG said this himself on WIP 2 days ago than a lower body injury. He's been running. He's fully conditioned. Is he in total NFL shape? Probably not. Could he play 4 quarters? He'd be a little bit gassed in the fourth quarter. But the fact he's not coming back from a knee or an ankle or a calf or something that kept him off of his lower body, massive for his chances of being as close to as being effective as he possibly can.
Yeah, and you said it right there, too, because, I get a lot of comments here, even in the chat. Shout out to everybody, if you've not already. Drop a like. BG is back. Practice window open. But the emergence of Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt, like we talked about yesterday, too, was like, that is the luxury of this. That's the beauty. Even BG coming to return, you say 10 snaps. you could play 10 really vital, crucial snaps, go all out,
Yeah.
all effort for those 10 snaps, and you're good to go. You're not asking BG to go out there like he was
Sure.
in the Rams game or early in the season where you're like, didn't anticipate this, but BG is the guy who's getting the most snaps out there for the edges. So I'm with you on it. It's great news altogether, but do I think that it's going to take away, because this is the, I guess, other side of the other part of this, does it take away from the pass rush? Does it take away from the defensive line because of how good Nolan Smith's been doing and because of how good Jalyx Hunt has been doing?
Yeah, not at all. No,
I don't think so either.
If anything, it's going to add, right? They're not going to take away reps
Right.
from Nolan Smith. They're not going to take away reps from Jalyx Hunt. If anything, Nolan Smith's reps might come down a little bit, and that's because in the current state of the Philadelphia Eagles edge rushers, they don't have as much depth. They don't want to play Bryce Huff. They don't have Brandon Graham, and so Smith's been playing even more snaps. And so, a certain drive here, Nolan Smith's a little bit more gassed than he would be. Sit down for a couple of reps, in comes BG, and then you have peak Nolan Smith in the fourth quarter when you need to go get a sack of Patrick Mahomes to win this game. So it's going to benefit them in a big way. And you also have to realize, Josh, this entire defensive line is virtually devoid of Super Bowl experience, right? Now, there's a couple. Rookie Jordan Davis played. Milton Williams played on that defense. Obviously, Josh Sweat played on that defense. Jalyx Hunt, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, your three biggest edge rushers or pass rushers, because Carter's a D tackle, have no Super Bowl experience. Now you throw Brandon Graham back in the mix, Brandon Graham back into practice the next 10 days, a Super Bowl champion. He's played in 2 Super Bowls. That's going to have a big-time factor as well. On the sideline, just being in the pads and being like, hey, I saw this on the field. What did you see? It's going to make a difference, Josh. That doesn't mean he's going to get 5 sacks, but it's going to make a difference in one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, even if he gets 1 sack, that's incredible. But
Massive.
yes, it's a certain difference maker. I was trying to find the photo that you were referencing for the stats there. But yeah, you look at the ages on these guys. In 2022, 32 from Fletch, 36 in Dominic Sue, 34 Linval Joseph. Hassan Reddick was the youngest in terms of like the, legit actually going out there getting a lot of reps at 28. And then Javon Hargrave, 30. Whereas, Jalen Carter, 23, Milton Williams, 25, JD, 25, Nolan, 24, Moro Ojomo, 23. It's just a complete changeover. And then, you add in BG, which this graphic was made before BG was anticipated or expected to play. So, it's incredible. And we got a lot of super chats here, too. So let me run through a couple of these as well. We appreciate all the support. Tyler, let's see, with a 5, says, hey, Thomas, need your honest opinions on Nick Wright. I saw your tweet from this morning, but
I have tried so hard to get my former boss as an intern at Fox Sports in New York City back in 2018. I worked with Nick Wright every day in the same office, in the studio, all that stuff. I've tried many times to get Nick Wright to come on my show. Ever since my show has become a lot bigger than it was, a couple years ago, and I've not been able to get back to him. I've talked to producers on the show. I've talked to former colleagues. It's like, yeah, we'll ask, and then I never hear back. So I like Nick Wright. I think Nick Wright obviously is successful due to the fact that he is very provocative, and all of us talk about the Nick Wright takes. I hated the take I saw, last night when him and Cowherd were doing their volume podcast together, where he was like, if Jalen Carter doesn't get a sack of the Rams on 3rd down, it's so dumb. We've heard multiple people. I mean, I think it was Phil Simms. If the Eagles don't have these 5 things happen, if the Chiefs don't get a pretty lucky spot on 4th down against Josh Allen, they lose. If the Bills tight end doesn't catch the football, they probably lose.
It's a million things.
I like Nick Wright. I would love to have Nick Wright come on my show. Obviously, nothing but respect for him. But I think he just fanboys a little too much for the Chiefs. And because the Chiefs happen to be really good, he gets to kind of rub it in people's face and definitely grinds non-Chiefs fans' gears the wrong way.
Yeah, yep. I'm with you. It gets views a lot of times. Sometimes he buys into those or leans to those pretty heavily. But he's gaining the viewership, so I guess continue to push up there. But
do what you gotta do.
He's in hiding. That's what he is. He doesn't want to come on your show.
Will not come on the show.
Definitely could. Nope. It would be worth his while, but he knows maybe that it would be not the greatest takes because it's Eagle stuff there. So he might not appreciate it.
Sure.
But, yes, for people just joining now, I'll go ahead and put this back up on the screen. You can also watch this back over with the official news report. We'll still keep talking about this, get into the super chats. But Eagles open the practice window for Brandon Graham as well as CJ Uzomah. So not officially on the active roster.
Right.
I'll also get to this question here in a second as well, but let me hit this super chat. The 20 bomb from Damon's, appreciate that, said, did you know a group of Eagles are called a Congress or Army? An army of Eagles are on their way to NOLA. I don't think I knew.
There you go. I didn't know that. I had no idea. I thought it would just be like a flock
school
of
Eagles.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah,
How
I
about
guess
that?
so. I'll take your word for it. I don't know. I didn't look this up either, so but I'm going to take your word that that's accurate. It's pretty legit, assuming that it is. Jerry with the 2. Okay, hold on. We're not going to Jerry. I'll get to yours in a second. We're not going to go off on a tangent yet. We will let me get this one first from CJ. I will get back to it. The 5
Yeah.
says, "Let's go, BG, one of my all-time favorite Eagles players. So excited to have him back for a big game, so he can get a big play like Super Bowl 52." You get a strip sack of Patrick Mahomes. How
Well, and
insane would that be?
all it takes is one, Josh. All it took in Super Bowl 52 was the one sack. That was the only sack of the game for the Eagle defense, and the strip sack obviously saves the day. Super Bowl 57, one sack on maybe the last 2 drives of the Chiefs' fourth quarter, and that game's over. And they didn't get close to Patrick Mahomes in that game, Josh. And right now, going into Super Bowl 59, take BG out of the equation. The Eagle defensive line should be much better than what it was in 2022 in that same game, just due to the field conditions. Now, I would argue that Jalen Carter, at his age and his performance, is a lot better than where Fletcher Cox was and Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh were. Now, Cox is a veteran, but I think Jalen Carter right now versus the final leg of his career, Fletcher Cox, much better. I think they're going to get a lot of pressure regardless. They're going to get sacks, but now just adding in a legend and someone who fully understands what to do in these big game situations, I don't think it can be overlooked. And the Chiefs' offensive line, Josh, it's not that good, right? Obviously, Joe Thuney has been a big factor, kicking him to the left tackle spot. They've dramatically reduced the amount of pressures. But this is not the Chiefs' offensive line of the past where they're like, Mahomes is not going to get touched. Mahomes is running for his life a lot of these games and obviously is fantastic at it. But the Eagles can get a ton of pressure on Patrick Mahomes. And if Brandon Graham happens to be a factor in that, whether it's statistically or mentally or, cheering on his teammates and just, hey, Nolan, I saw this on that one snap I played. Like, why don't you give him a spin move instead of a bull rush here? Boom, sack. It can make a big difference. And so even if you want to comment and say he's probably not 100%, I'm not going to argue with you, Josh. Like, he's obviously not 100%.
Sure.
But they would not be bringing him back if he was useless. Like, if that tricep is dead and it's just kind of like dangling out there, there's no way he would play, right?
Exactly.
They clearly have tested this and understand that he needed to be better than 60%, and he's at 78%, and they're like, good enough for me.
For sure, yes. And like we talked about, we mentioned multiple times, Fangio's not the type of guy that's going to be a token like, hey,
that's
BG,
a great point.
Do you want to, we'll make a spot, right? Because then the next question also, we continue along the lines. It's like, okay, first off, BG's back. Does it impact the rotation? Okay, no, he should be good. Vic Fangio's not going to do that as a token. But also, who do you take off the active roster, right? Because then you start going around and looking at, is it a guy like a Luisina? Like, are you going to look at it at a recent signing? But then all of a sudden, you open it up to potentially another team signing him.
Yeah.
Removing that is a Thomas Booker who has not played very many snaps, but he's been, in the 2-3 snaps he's gotten, he's made some plays, not as much as of late. Or is it just a altogether completely different position group? You don't even go like defense. You take some offensive player. There's so many ways that you could go with this, but that's another element to it. But again, just opening up the practice window, you keep your options open, but they feel comfortable enough. He's back on the practice field to say, you know what, I think we're going to try to make a push for this. And then Howie Roseman and everybody else figures out the roster shuffling and what you need to do for it. But ultimately, again, it's a positive sign. William with a 5. Appreciate that. Says, attention, air traffic control. This flock of Eagles are heading to New Orleans. #GoBirds. That is, it is the iconic call. It doesn't get much better than that. But whenever Merrill Reese said that, it's like, let's go, baby. Okay, the other super chat that I will get to, this is going to get us off on a little bit of a tangent.
Okay.
But Jerry with a 2 says, we'll quickly cover this. Does Thomas really look like Shipley? I don't think Jerry believes this, but I think Jerry is asking in terms of the tweet that he saw.
No, if you haven't seen that tweet, no, I don't see it at all. We have completely different head shapes. I have the egg head shape, right? And Josh kind of does too. We have very similar, kind of like the normal oval-y head shape, whereas it's more round for Will Shipley. So one of my buddies, Jacob Brandenburg, posted a picture that I retweeted on my Twitter account where both of us without, like in college, with shaved faces, which if you've never seen a picture of me that I didn't shave, or I was fully shaved in college like all the time. Maybe a little more, but I don't see it. But apparently Twitter thinks so, so we'll see.
I don't think so either. I feel like the vast majority of people were saying no. There was one or two maybe that was saying yes, but overall, you could see on your screen. You guys could debate that in the chat. We won't get lost totally on this tangent. But Jerry, we do appreciate the super chat. We appreciate the support.
Yes.
All the comments we will read from the teleprompter when required. But yeah, I don't see that liking either. So
I don't see it.
yeah.
No.
Seems like most people agree as well. But Thomas, the other thing I was going to say, you brought this up. BG has been there, right? Already helping the squad, even not being
Sure.
suited up and on the team. But there's a
Sure.
difference There's a difference maker whenever he's out there, and even if it is only, let's say he comes back, they do get him onto the roster. He's good to go with the practice, which we'll monitor this weekend next, and should know officially, obviously, well before the Super Bowl. But there's a difference of, hey, I'm seeing this versus he goes out there, even if he only plays 5 to 10 snaps, and he sees it, but he's also feeling it, and he could tell something that the line is doing or shifting, and then he can relay that message to the guys versus, well, I'm just kind of seeing it on film. And so I think that's another thing, too, of if he can go out there and play even just the very limited snaps, he's been there before. It is that leadership, but there's the wisdom and the knowledge of firsthand taking on a block and seeing what the Chiefs are trying to do with their pass protection instead of, well, okay, I can just take this from the film. So it's night and day difference. I don't think anybody is really denying it. There's all sorts of support, which obviously so. I mean, it's BG the legend, but there's not a better way. It feels appropriate. We mentioned this a million different times, but it's like, if this is going to be the last ride, which it very much feels this way for BG.
Probably.
He didn't totally shut the door, but it feels like this is it. Win the Super Bowl. And if he's able to go out there and suit up and play, that, it is for sure. It is the riding off into the sunset. It's the way that it has to end. Just make it happen.
Well, and let me just say this quickly about Brandon Graham in terms of his skill set in this football game. We're talking about rushing the passer, Josh, and maybe riding off into the sunset with that final sack to go ahead and seal what it should be maybe a Hall of Fame, at least an Eagles Hall of Fame career. Run defense. We kind of forget because BG's been out for a while now. He was like their best run defender on that defensive line. Because remember, Bryce Huff started the season as the starting edge rusher. Obviously got demoted because of run defense was pretty poor. Nolan Smith comes in. Jalyx Hunt comes in. Not great in run defense early. They get much, much better. They're obviously fantastic right now. But right before BG went down, and he was balling. He was the Cleveland Brown game. He was fantastic. But in stopping the run. The Chiefs have not been good running the football their past 4 games. 2 postseason games, and then obviously the 2 regular season games that mattered. Keep the Denver one out of there because they rested all their starters. They've not rushed for more than... They've got 100 yards rushing in like the last 5 games. It was the first regular season game versus the Texans where they had like 120 yards rushing. So if they already are a poor running football team, and you mix BG in, depending on how much he plays, massive if, we'll see, and he makes their run offense even worse, and Fangio just knows, hey, it's going to be passes to Kelsey and Worthy all game long. That's another edge up for this Eagle defense and Vic Fangio to go ahead and scheme for and hopefully shut down because they can put all of their focus into stopping the pass because the run defense is so bad and the run offense is so bad and the run defense could get another boost with Brandon Graham.
That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, for any team, right, you want to make them one-dimensional, but if we do that against the Chiefs
very much are.
They
very much are.
Yeah, continue to just emphasize that and say, all right, hey, you know what? Try to take advantage of this, which it is a much better defense than Fangio has had against Patrick Mahomes. And there's all sorts of ways that we could take this, of course. But, people throw out there the whole record, the 8-0, Andy Reid just being able, or Patrick Mahomes versus Vic Fangio, but kind of same thing for Reid, Andy Reid out there. But Mahomes has had some not great games. I mean, winning is all that matters. We know that. But it's not had great statistical games. So if you force it and say, hey, it's one-dimensional, offense take care of the football, offense dominate like we know they can. Chiefs are good defense, sure, we'll give that to it. But offense can take advantage and then make it one-dimensional. Mahomes, 2 of his worst 9 playoff games have come against Vic Fangio. In terms of passing efficiency, 2 of his 9. It's just Fangio didn't have any sort of offense to help out or to offset that. But it's like everybody going into it immediately writing it off, say, oh, well, it's 8-0 against Vic Fangio. Patrick Mahomes obviously must carve him up, just going to be easy to win, pick them apart. It's a little bit less than, dig into the numbers a little bit more so. And there's reason for promise here. So I like it. It's just an extra piece. As we said, if BG's not, I get a few, not a whole lot, but seeing a few comments here. Maybe not so much towards the BG news. If BG is not ready to go, rest assured, this is not we said this is not a token like, hey, BG, you're the legend, so we're going to make a roster spot for you. If he practices this week and they say, we're not going to make this happen, then you'll figure it out. But just the fact they're activating the practice here, I think tells you all you need to know of like he is able to make an impact. And then you see it later on this next coming week of say, okay, hey, BG's officially on the roster. He will play. Maybe it's only 5 snaps. Maybe it's only 10, but it's still altogether good news having him there.
It'll make a difference. We've seen Eagle legends in Super Bowls coming off injuries where they shouldn't be that effective have some pretty impressive games. Very different in terms of TO, but he should not have been able to move on that leg. And Bill Belichick said they barely game plan for him because, there's no way that he can actually run around. And he had 10 catches for 130 yards or something like that. So you never know. Listen, modern medicine, you can do a lot of things to stop pain. I know this is more of a strength issue in terms of the tricep versus a pain issue. I have a feeling that he can give you 10 to 20 snaps if you desperately need it and give you something good, Josh. I'm pumped. I'm very excited about this news. I think this is big news for Philadelphia.
Absolutely. I'm completely happy about this. I mean, who doesn't want to see BG out there? But, like you said, you even mentioned playing through pain. We saw Landon Dickerson play through that in the knee injury, and so we'll keep everybody posted as we keep going. Eagles won't have they'll have some practice injury updates, but it won't be major until we get to next week really, as they're resting players. But I think it was more so of like a Landon Dickerson situation with his knee injury and playing practically on one leg. But again, it means so much to these players, and you see that. You saw the emotion from Cam Jurgens after the NFC Championship game dealing with his back. If these guys can show up for one game, it's another thing when we're like early in the season, you say, well, you got 10 games remaining. Fine. You see guys miss games all the time, shut them down, whatever. One game to go out on top, to leave everything on the line like that, absolutely. BG is not going to be held back. So, I don't see how it's not able to make a mark. Michael with the 2. I didn't see a comment here. Actually, the message was taken away, but I got the super chat. We appreciate the support there. If you do have a message, let me know. I can read that one. But yeah, I think it's good. People saying this is maybe telling more so of Bryce Huff. I don't know that Bryce Huff gets off the active roster for this.
How many snaps does Bryce Huff get?
But he's not going to play much. So maybe it's like, all right, hey, if we need somebody to go in there for rotational, BG's better than Bryce Huff at this point, better than your $50 million pass rusher. But that's a whole nother story you can figure out next season. Thankfully, it's not a big issue this year. But it's good news all around. Like you said.
There you go. Quickly, Philly Mark just said, any news on Landon or Jurgens? They had a walkthrough yesterday. It was kind of like it wasn't a real injury report because they didn't actually practice. On that injury report, they would have been DNPs. I don't think you're going to see Dickerson or Jurgens practice today. Josh has a video coming out later after practice to kind of give you the full update on that. But I think you're going to wait to see the updates on Jurgens and Dickerson until next week. But all signs, as I said on my show yesterday, are pointing towards them being just fine for the Super Bowl. It'll be the starting offensive line for Philadelphia, for sure.
Yes. Positive. Very positive. Because, again, they already gutted it out. They get extra. This is the beauty. It's like the blessing and the curse. I will say this, Thomas, because, there's one side of me that this 2-week stretch has already felt like an eternity, and we're not even into next week. But the positive, like we say, is that there's extra time. So, when you have these injuries and these guys are trying to come back, you're like, 1 week doesn't really feel like that much in terms of us, normal people, us peasants, just the normal beings. But for these superheroes out there, 1 week can get them from they were never going to play to all of a sudden hey, I'm 70%, now juice me up, and I'm out there going ready and make as much of an impact as I can. So it does help. Then I'll just say that it's a little more difficult as we're waiting here, going all right, we got another week and a half ish until we get to the Super Bowl, but we'll be there. We'll be there before you know it. And we'll be streaming for you guys, so make sure to come hang out for that. Got some crazy stuff planned as well. Let's see. I was trying to make sure. Yeah, I think that was the last super chat as well. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap here. As always, appreciate you guys. Make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. More videos to come. And if you're just joining again, Brandon Graham practice window has been opened. So stay tuned for more news there. You can rewind this, watch the whole takeaway and everything on that side. But again, as always, you guys know what it is. Go Birds.
Go Birds.